Hey VCers, it's Matt, and it's time for another Kinks review. And this installment brings us out of the 60s and into the 70s for Lola, or Lola versus Powerman in the Moneygoround, Part 1 for the full title. I don't recommend that you sit around holding your breath waiting for Part 2 to show up anytime soon. So, yeah, we're into the 70s, and something has definitely changed. This album, there is a noticeable drop off in the quality from the albums that preceded it, which sounds like I'm about to go negative review. That's not the case at all. This is actually a really good album. I like it quite a bit. It just lacks some of the majestic, epic scale, wonder and quality that the albums that came out before had, and something's gone missing. And I don't know, those albums really didn't do anything, especially in the United States, so maybe the fact that they, chart-wise and sales-wise, didn't do much, Ray Davies was disheartened and went in a different direction. They also got to finally start touring the United States after not being able to for 5 years, so they start picking up American influences a little bit more. Um, I'm not sure, but maybe it's just a change in the decade, but something's different here. But nonetheless, this is really a good album. It's kind of analogous to Paul McCartney's latest album, New. Great album. I love it. It's one of my favorite of his solo albums. Great stuff. Would I put it in the same league as these albums behind me? Uh-uh. But, and it's sort of same with this. So it's a really great album, or a really good album, but it's not, in my opinion, the greatness of the albums that preceded it. So yeah, and of course, Arthur, Village Green, Something Else, Face to Face, did absolutely nothing in America. Majority of people probably forgot the Kinks even existed, or just thought them as an oldies act that did You Really Got Me. So of course, out of nowhere, Lola goes to number 9, and it becomes their biggest hit since 1965, and the album even gets to number 35 in the U.S. Lola hits number 1 in the Netherlands and New Zealand, and number 2 in England, by the way, the song that is. And so the other thing with Village Green and Arthur, the two albums immediately before this one, the Kinks did, well, they made the best ever rock opera and or concept albums. Um, when everyone was doing rock operas and concept albums, they made the best. This is another, I guess, rock opera, or at least a concept album. And um, the sad fact is that Ray Davies, much like Pete Townsend and Roger Waters, would get what I call conceptitis, or rock opera degenerative disease, where all of a sudden everything had to be this big, grandiose, overblown, thematic story production thing, which is really a shame because the rest of the 70s, up until about 1977 or so, would be pretty much all these overblown rock operas and concept albums from the Kinks, and it's kind of telling that they this was popular, but after this they really wouldn't become popular again until the late 70s and early 80s, when they finally abandoned all the rock opera big story production nonsense to just write albums full of songs again that aren't necessarily connected or telling a story. But the story of Lola, by and large, is a rock band who's trying to get their break. And they go around and they get rejected and they get rejected. Finally, someone records them and they get screwed over by the manager, but then they get a number 1 hit, and then they get famous and they find out that fame wasn't all it's cracked up to be. Ray Davies will revisit this on some of these later 70s albums of the Kinks, and of course Pink Floyd tackles that very thing on Wish You Were Here in 1975. Kind of a dull, and The Wall to some extent too. Kind of a dull concept, or I don't want to say dull or pointless concept, but since most of us aren't famous rock and roll stars making tons of money, it's kind of hard for Joe Blow, average person, to relate to the rigors and the you know, burdens of being famous and so forth, or life on the road and all that stuff. But for what it is, it's a pretty good. The story isn't that cohesive on here, I don't think. Arthur does a much better job of telling a story, and it's a much more interesting story, and it's a much more relatable kind of to every man, every woman type themes on that and Village Green than this is. But for all my griping and complaining here at the first part of the video, I really do like this album. So we'll go. This is, by the way, my old copy of this was an American copy. It had a gatefold and had the lyrics inside. This doesn't have a gatefold. I ordered this off of eBay because I didn't have it and I wanted to keep doing these reviews, and it showed up. This is a Spanish pressing, or at least it was printed in Madrid, looks like, from the back label. Here's the, I think I showed them that, and here's the actual record. No gatefold, but the vinyl's in really good shape, and so I've been listening to this the last week to refamiliarize myself with it, because I had this album that I bought way back in '80 or so, but I haven't had it in probably 10 years. So side one, we'll just go through the songs real quick. The Contenders is kind of cool. Starts off as kind of like a lullaby by way of hillbilly Ozark music that kicks into, that's just the intro, then it kicks into kind of a heavy guitar and boogie woogie piano as a nice opener. Strangers is kind of a moody song, kind of cool. It's sort of something you'd like to sitting in a bar alone, drink and listen to song maybe. It's a really good song. I like it. Crazy thing about the song is it reminds me of something. Not necessarily that it like ripped off another song, but it's just really thematically close to some other song. And I've been all week long trying to figure, it's been on the tip of my tongue, and I can't quite place what it's reminding me of. So Denmark Street is basically, that's Tin Pan Alley in England, I think, or the equivalent of that. It's kind of old music hall music that's sort of a 20s and 30s music type feel to it. Neat song. So it's getting a really good start. The first three songs. Get Back in Line might be my favorite song on the album, and it's the closest to the old Kinks sound. The old Kinks being a whole year ago at this point in 1969 and 1968 with Village Green. I really like that. That might be my favorite on the album. Lola, of course, a big hit. Everybody knows. I mean, if you don't know anything about the Kinks, you probably at least know You Really Got Me in Lola. Maybe Come Dancing. Lola be their biggest hit until Come Dancing got to number 6 in 1983. So yeah, I like it. It's a good song. It's a fun song. I was reading up some stuff on this album, and some reviews of the time the album came out and now. Someone called Lola the best song. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I wouldn't to say that it's the better than Waterloo Sunset or Dead End Street or You Really Got Me is kind of absurd, but it's still a great song. I love the opening. I love that sort of weird flat bound draggy riff or chord at the beginning. Kind of reminds me of that same kind of strange, kind of creepy sound at the beginning of Let It Bleed by the Rolling Stones. One hand, and kind of reminds me of that crazy, wild, funny chord that the Beatles, George uses at the very beginning of Hard Day's Night, where it sounds like he dropped his guitar or something. So it's just a kind of a cool opening. And it's a fun song. I really like it, but not quite as good as their 60s stuff, in my opinion. Top of the Pops, if you're following the story, this is where they get the hit record. Kind of a bouncy, fun song. It's really good. So side one's holding up really good. Moneygoround closes out the side, and it's kind of an old-timey music. There's a lot of heavy guitar, heavier than they have been. They had a lot of great guitar on Arthur, the album that came before this, and that was kind of a return to more guitar after some albums with harpsichords and strings and horns like Village Green and somewhere else. They go even more into kind of a rock sound, bit of a country sound here and there, and a bit of a kind of a early '70s rock sound. So yeah. And then there's also some old music hall style music and some just so old timey music and some, as usual, you still have a mix of styles. So yeah, Moneygoround's good stuff. Side two opens with what's it called? This Time Tomorrow. Looking at notes, I apologize. Which is kind of a somnambulant, sleepy feeling song, but it's also kind of a great sing along song. Really good way to start side two. So far every song on here's been good, right? Now we get to Long Way Home, A Long Way From Home. It's a good song. It's kind of quality of just being there, just okay. Get to Rats, which is the only song on here written by Dave Davies. It's horrible. Just a dumb song. It's hard to believe that, it was just a couple of years earlier he was writing Death of a Clown, and Susanna's Still Alive and songs like this. It's just not a very good song at all. Worst song on the album. Then we get to Ape Man, the other song that was a minor hit off the album. Uh, Actually, I think I like Ape Man more than Lola, even though I like Lola a lot. But Ape Man's a lot of fun. It's goofy. It's bordering on being a gimmick song, but it's got kind of a reggae calypso beat. If you haven't heard it, it's silly, but it's a lot of fun. And I have good memories of being a teenager and singing that when I was having a beer or two. So it's kind of funny and silly song. I like it. And what do we wind off with Powerman, which has a nice kind of herky-jerky back and forth guitar groove. The song itself doesn't really add up to much, but it's a nice little groove going in music-wise. And we finish the album with Got to Be Free, which kind of ties back to the opening on side one of the Contenders, kind of echoes that sort of country bluegrass Ozark feel. So it's okay. Um, yeah, I mean this isn't the greatness of the albums that came before it, but it's still great. Still very good, I would say. Maybe not great. I like it. I'm glad to have it back in my collection. I've been listening to it quite a bit this week, and I will continue to listen to it. Scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to say it's an 8. They're still an 8. Unfortunately, the sledding gets a little rough from here on out with the Kinks, at least until they kind of have their comeback period in the late '70s, early '80s. But I do have the next 7 or 8 albums ready to go, and I'm gonna have to kind of slog through them to get for the reviews, but I know there are some good songs on them and some good stuff to come. But anyway, hope everyone's having a good weekend, and if you're not into the Kinks yet, this wouldn't be the place to start, but it'd definitely be the place to go after. There's quite a few albums to get before this, but this would be one worth picking up. So have a good weekend, everybody.